I'm Mark Jolly and I'm ranting about energy labelling for consumers. Why don't we have energy ratings and labels for our cars and other vehicles? Well, don't we already have them? You know, those checks on exhaust emissions and CO2, all backed up by government legislation and the car manufacturers themselves. And aren't they always looking for ways to reduce emissions and via lower fuel consumption? So it's all good, right? Well, no. This single measure used around the world as an indicator of what makes for a low emission, environmentally friendly motor vehicle is just a snapshot and is misleading. It's misleading for consumers, it's misleading for governments, and misleading for society as a whole. Worse, it's exactly this focus on a single measurement, the exhaust pipe emissions, which has the potential to drive up CO2 across the world, given that the number of cars is expected to double to 2 billion by 2035. Well, we've looked at exactly what the push for lower tailpipe emissions has actually meant. Probably more lightweight vehicles and probably with aluminium engines. Well, yes, less fuel is used, emissions are reduced. But what about all the energy required for the manufacture of the lighter engines? Well, it's a disturbing picture of hidden environmental costs and damage. The production of each aluminium cylinder block consumes 2 to 4 times more energy than the production of an equivalent cast iron cylinder block. The nearly twofold increase in energy consumption occurs when the aluminium components are produced using reusable metal moulds, referred to as high pressure die casting. And the almost fourfold energy increase results when the aluminium cylinder blocks are produced by sand casting, where the components are produced in expendable sand moulds, and even though the sand is recyclable. Overall, more than 70% of the global aluminium production is based on fossil fuels, largely in China and the Gulf states. Under these conditions, the energy that is used for the aluminium generates 10 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of aluminium produced. This means that a typical aluminium engined car would need to be driven for somewhere between 185,000 kilometres and 560,000 kilometres before there were any environmental benefits at all from the lower fuel use involved. Well, the average life expectancy of a motor vehicle is only about 200,000 kilometres, so the great majority of cars aren't helping, they're just increasing CO2 emissions. And we also need to bear in mind that the waste from the production of aluminium, what's known as red mud, has a pH value of 14 and is highly toxic. 2 tonnes of red mud is created for every tonne of aluminium produced. We already have great lakes of the stuff, and it burns anything in its path if it escapes. We have to start looking at the full energy costs and the environmental implications of manufactured products like cars, and energy rating labels would be one way of helping consumers get a more truthful indication of what's green and what's not. Because aluminium is just one of the hidden costs. We all accept that electric cars and battery-driven cars are a sustainable transport option of the future. But what about the huge energy costs in manufacturing all the batteries? Taking into consideration the full life cycle cost of manufacture and use is the best option that appears to be the vehicle fueled and the best option appears to be a vehicle fueled by natural biogases. So when they can, most consumers want to make green choices. We rely on the authorities, whether that's driven by industry or governments, to give us an accurate and balanced set of information. Without sharing data on the whole life cycle of manufactured products, we're not getting that. In fact, we're not even getting close.